What makes Guild Wars 2 interesting? If you haven't heard of Guild Wars 2 at all, let me give you a brief overview. Guild Wars 2 is an MMORPG which is developed by ArenaNet since 2007. As the sequel to Guild Wars 1, it is set in the world of Tyria and continues the story about 250 years after the original series. But the similarities pretty much stop there. To name just a few key differences between the two games, your adventures will for the most part take place in an open world. You are no longer restricted to play with 5 buddies of yours in an instant area, you can play with everybody in the same world. You're no longer restricted to just one race. You'll have the choice between humans, Char, Norn, Asura and Sylvari. And probably the most important one, you can finally jump. Guild Wars 2 is currently in beta and is set to release on August 28th. I want to give you a few of the key aspects which in my opinion make Guild Wars 2 at least a game to watch. I will take a more in-depth look at some of the features in upcoming videos, but for the purpose of this video I won't go into too much detail. So let's jump right in. No subscription fee. Guild Wars 2 will continue the payment model of its predecessor, which means you'll buy the game itself for about $60 and you can keep playing it without paying any monthly fees. Since the game is an MMO, ArenaNet has to maintain in-game support, maintain the servers and continue with ongoing development of new content. Which means they need to earn some kind of revenue after the initial price of the game. And that's where the in-game shop comes into play. Everybody who's now screaming, hey, it's a pay-to-win game, don't worry. The shop will, similar to the one in Guild Wars 1, focus purely on cosmetic enhancement and simple convenience. Like for example, more character slots, a nice looking head or server transfers. And even though the shop itself won't give you any power, you're theoretically able to acquire every item from the shop without investing even $1. This results from the in-game shop's currency, gems, and the in-game currency itself, gold, being interchangeable. I won't go into the specifics in this video, but it pretty much depends on supply and demand. No Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity system describes the conventional division in healer, tank and DPS classes. Even though most other MMOs enable one class to fulfill more than one of these roles, this system still leads to a rather static combat. Another disadvantage is that you need people who take on the particular tasks, and often some of these roles are rather unpopular. For example, in most MMOs it's hard to find tanks, and that makes finding a group pretty much a pain in the ass. In Guild Wars 2 there are no designated healers, tanks or DPS. Every class incorporates all of these roles and in a fight they need to fulfill all of them at one point or another. Every class has the ability to heal themselves and in a limited capacity the group. Instead of one person just standing in front of the boss and taking hits to the face and another person solely concentrating on keeping them alive, everybody does damage. Everybody has the ability to heal and everybody has to try to avoid as much damage as possible. It's supposed to be even possible to go through every dungeon in the game with 5 people of the same class. This means you'll never have to spend 40 minutes looking for a tank or any specific class you need to achieve what you want to achieve. You're not the center of the universe. At first glance this might seem like a bad thing, but believe me, it's not. Games are often set up in a way where the player himself is the key character to everything and therefore everything revolves around him. This might be a great concept for single player RPGs, but in an MMO it doesn't really make a lot of sense. In a game that is built around the idea of many people playing together, it's just unrealistic that everybody is, to say it with the words of Total Biscuit, the frickin' archmage of the entire universe. In Guild Wars 2, you are part of something important, but you're only one piece of the puzzle. You have your own storyline too, but in the open world you're not the center of the attention. The world doesn't just stop because you're not there. Everything continues to happen even if you're not there to witness it. And in a case where nobody bothers to help, for example, a small town that is being attacked by savage centaurs, the centaurs don't wait until you decide you have nothing better to do than to help them. If nobody defends the town, the centaurs will take it over and that has some impact on the world. How much sense does it make if an NPC stands there for 2 days and right when you pay him a visit, everything starts to happen? If you have to escort a courier with an important message and you just stop, the courier is going on without you. If nobody else helps him, well, he might die, but he's definitely not gonna wait for you. He has to carry out an important message to his queen. Why the hell should he give a crap if you decide you need some coffee? The event system. Although initially very innovative, after about 8 years the system of quests in MMOs seems kind of dated. Guild Wars 2 takes it one step further. Although the traditional element of kill this, gather that, etc. is still in place, ArenaNet made it a little bit more immersive with their switch to events. There are hard events, dynamic events and world events. Hard events are in specific locations where you have a number of possible objectives in order to improve your standing with a person, a family, a tribe or whatever. In the event you see right now, I have the option to play golem chess, help a research bot by gathering data from particular skills, or repair a malfunctioning golem. With the completion of any of these tasks, I gain a small amount of progress. I can choose what I want to do, and everything productive will earn me progress with this hard event. Dynamic events have multiple stages on a chain of events. If you succeed in defending a small town from a thief invasion, the event will go into its next stage, where you might try to take over the thief camp itself. If no one bothers to help the defending town, they will take over the town and go invade the next one. Everything you do, or possibly decide not to do, has an effect on the world. In higher level areas, the dynamic events won't just be on a chain, they will get more and more complex with multiple subsequent events, depending on what exactly happened during the previous one. World events are events that randomly start in a world. In this example, I just wanted to get rid of some trash in my inventory and I find myself in the middle of a squid invasion. You might just be running through a forest and killing some bees and suddenly the bee queen appears and tries to revenge her fallen children. You don't have to go from NPC to NPC and accept quest after quest. You don't have to follow a certain path or work off a list of quests. You're steered in a general direction, but you could also just wander off and run into some events. You can just go explore the world and still your character gets progress. All these different types of events will scale according to the number of players that are actively participating, and in the end everybody will be rewarded depending on their participation. If you just walk by, kill 2 monsters and move along, you'll be rewarded, but not as much as someone who helped the entire time. Exactly like that, it's with single monsters. You get experience and some gold from a monster even if you just make 2 attacks on it. You won't get as much as the guy who kills it entirely himself, but you still get rewarded for participation. World vs. World. The servers in Guild Wars 2 are called worlds. World vs. World is an abbreviation because it's actually world versus world versus world, but that's just a pain in the ass to say. Since Guild Wars 2 has no factions, World vs. World consists of 3 whole servers fighting each other in a 2-week-long battle. These servers are marked as red, blue and green. This 2-week-long battle takes place on 4 giant maps, 1 home map for every server and 1 contested map called the Eternal Battleground. The exact number of possible players on these maps is still not final, but it will be at least multiple hundreds from each server on each map. On all of those maps are multiple objectives, varying from small resource camps to giant castles, which can be fought over and conquered by the servers. In order to conquer these objectives, the players have the ability to build and use siege weapons, and with these destroy walls and gates. Every 5 minutes, the servers will be rewarded points according to the number of claimed objects, and at the end of 2 weeks, the server with the most points will get certain bonuses. Every server will, depending on its win-loss ratio, be matched up with 2 new servers. World vs. World also incorporates some PvE elements like small events to get the assistance from neutral NPC factions, or escorting a resource delivery from a small lumber mill to your castle. I will go into more detail on World vs. World in an upcoming video. Bring skill, not time. Especially in PvP, but to some degree also in PvE and World vs. World, the secret to success in Guild Wars 2 is to just get better. And not by grinding for a month and being better than others just by having better gear. Many people might have a problem with getting rid of the item treadmill because they're used to being better than others just based on equip. But for me, this is one of the most important selling points of Guild Wars 2. In PvE and World vs. World, you get increasing stats up to a certain relatively easy achievable point. And from there on, you just get more and more stylish gear. Structured PvP is generally independent from PvE and World vs. World. If you want to play PvP, you can do it right away. You don't have to grind through hours and hours of PvE just to get to the real PvP. You start at max level with a basic selection of equipment. Afterwards, you can improve the look of your gear and with that directly show others how badass you are. You're on a level playing field and solely your skill makes the difference. I find that even if many people say that they want better stats on their gear, in its core the motivation comes from being able to show off cool designs from items that are not easy to get. If you think about it, when the motivation doesn't originate from this, you just want to have more power than others without getting better at the game itself. Why should somebody that is already better get even more of an advantage through better gear? And if you're honest, the real competition in PvP always starts at the point where everyone has the same gear anyway. Dynamic combat. The combat in Guild Wars 2 is called dynamic for a reason. You're no longer just standing in front of a monster and pushing some buttons over and over until the mob has no life anymore. You have to move around, dodge out of the way and always make the decision if you want to make a bit more damage or you have to avoid attacks in order to stay alive. Constant movement is not reserved for PvP anymore. You gotta stay mobile in almost every aspect of the game. These are just some of the cool things that Guild Wars 2 will bring to the table. Like I already mentioned, I will get into more detail on some of the individual subjects in some upcoming videos, so subscribe for more Guild Wars 2 related content. My name is Chronic Gamer, I'll see you next time.